Before we begin, I would like to invite our listeners to help support our podcast and YouTube channel by becoming a Patreon of Vital Bioenergetics. By joining our Patreon, you are not only supporting the free content that we're producing, you will receive coupon codes, special offers, and inside information on the work that we're doing to help humanity raise their vibration to the next level. Please go to www.patreon.com/vitalbioenergetics and become a Patreon today. And now for today's podcast. Welcome to High Vibes with your host Bill G and co-host Nina G. At High Vibes, we're looking into what it means to be a fourth dimensional being in an ever-changing world. We hope that by listening to this podcast, you can feel a greater sense of peace and connection as we collectively raise our energetic vibration to the next level. And now for today's podcast. Hello and welcome to
High Vibes.
I'm Bill G and I'm here with Nina, and today we have a special guest. We have Jayme Westrom, who's our very newest member of the Vital Bioenergetics family.
Welcome, Jayme.
Yay!
Thank you. So happy to be here with both of you.
Well, okay, so for this show, we're going to be just talking about you and what you bring to the table as far as what we do. Just so that all of you out there know what Vital Bioenergetics is. It is a healing cooperative of people who bring a unique perspective to energy and healing and helping you raise your vibration to the next level of awareness. And so we're very happy to have you with us today. To get started, why don't you just give us a brief overview of what Biofield Expert is all about?
Okay, I'll do that, and then maybe a little bit of background about where I came from will be in order to explain. But basically, I have a wellness practice in Sarasota, Florida, and I specialize in something called quantum reflex analysis, which uses a type of dowsing to read acupuncture points on a person's energy field and help them figure out how to optimize their being. So I look at a couple main things. The first being nutritional deficiencies. So we look to where there might need to be some corrections or additions in the diet to help with varying things, whatever the issue might be. But there's also some other really cool things in quantum reflex analysis that we try to identify, because nutrition is just part of what's going on with our energy fields. So we also look at where there might be emotions that need to be removed from the cells, where old trauma might be stuck and hindering an organ or gland system. We look at where there might be scars or traumas where maybe somebody had a surgery, a concussion, a whiplash, something of that nature that's disrupted the flow of energy within the meridian system. We correct that through clay packing. And then we also look at the home environment and the electromagnetic fields there and how that might be disrupting someone's energy field. So those are sort of the main things that I look at with a client, and that's what I do here.
That's awesome. I've actually referred a couple of clients to you from time to time because on one of my charts we have geopathic stress and we have electromagnetic fields, whatever, that are blocking their ability to ground or to be healthy. And I'm like, I know this person that I think can help you out because she's got some products on her website that I think are going to be really great for you. And actually, that's what got me thinking that you would be a great addition to our family here.
Jayme, do you work remotely?
I do. I do all different types of things with people. So it's kind of just case by case. In Florida, we have a lot of people that are snowbirds and they go back up north for the nice summer up there. So in those situations, I have people send me photographs if they're wanting to know what supplements they need to switch to. And I've had people send me photos of their houses and I can kind of direct them as far as what they might need to do for grounding that way.
So let's go into a little bit of your background. What inspired you to get into this field in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So I started out as a Montessori teacher. I have a master's degree in education, and I spent 10 years with 3 to 9-year-olds in a classroom setting. I loved it for the period of time that I was doing that. But what I started seeing was lots of autism spectrum things popping up, emotional disturbances, what they label as attention deficit disorder. And I got really interested in how changing the environment might help some of these, alleviate some of these stressors from these children. So in Montessori education, you're taught to really observe ad nauseum the classroom and tweak things in order to create sort of this perfect harmonious environment where kids they just learn naturally and effortlessly. And after all of that observation, what I really realized was that these external stressors were causing the issues on the children. It wasn't what was happening inside the classroom. It was the media they were watching at home. It was the foods they were eating. It was possibly some electromagnetic stuff or just social interactions with the family. And I started going back to school and studying holistic nutrition, and that led into yoga training and Reiki training and studying homeopathy and then radionics. And then you just go down this really cool rabbit hole of energy stuff. And all of that led me to Premier Research Labs, which is the nutraceutical company that I've been working with for the past 10 years now. And that's where I learned quantum reflex analysis and the Dowsing method that I use in my practice now. And it was like somebody gave me a big giant golden key to the universe and said, here you go, and go on, now you can unlock some of these secrets, stuff that's like hiding in plain sight in front of us that we don't know how to access until we do.
So why don't you let's just go over your basic product categories here. So what would you say is the primary thing that people come to you to work on?
Well, I think for most people, it usually starts with they're having low energy, or they're not sleeping well, or their digestion is out of whack, or they're having anxiety. These are some of the typical things that people are having issues with, and they're not maybe getting results from their traditional doctor. And so they start seeking alternatives. And so that's typically where I start with people. For us, we're very familiar with all the energetic stuff and all the spiritual things, and but not everybody is. And so I usually just start with the basics and figure out what organs and glands are resonating and what needs support. And we start with the supplements. And once they experience how their energy field changes, and they can feel that with the dowsing, and then a month of being on the right supplement regimen, they're feeling amazing. And so then they come back for more. And then sort of as time goes on, I'll introduce other things, like maybe now we do some emotional clearing and nutrition the next visit. And then maybe the next visit, I talk about remediating the house. And, because we all have these layers, like we talk about being the onion, right? We fix one layer, and then there's another layer underneath, and then we need to address that. So, I just start with the layer that's presented to me and go from there. And I'm sure you're doing the same thing with your charts, right?
I'm doing exactly the same thing. Right.
That's so neat, because you have several different modalities that you can choose from depending on what you're seeing in the client or in the client's house. So you don't have just one thing to pull from. You seem to have many things to pull from, which is wonderful.
Yes, it's great to have a big toolkit, because what we want to do at the end of the day as practitioners is we want to find the root cause of the problem and fix that. And that's not always supplements. It's not always just EMF remediation. It could be something else. So it's good to have a nice little basket. You mentioned your clients, Bill, that have used some of my things for the geopathic stress, and that's pretty interesting. And it's really cool that comes up on your charts, and that you found an outlet, to kind of help people address that. So there's two things that I recommend a lot. For your clients, they're not near me, so I can't go and do it for them at their house and demonstrate. I have to kind of walk them through it. But there are these pink granite rocks that you can actually bury in the corners of your house outside, and they help to reharmonize the geopathic stress, and they also cancel out the rebar grid in your cement foundation.
Oh, neat.
Now, this is something that nobody ever thinks about, right? We're constantly over cement, whether you're in the grocery store, you're working out at the gym, you're on a sidewalk. We're very disconnected from the actual frequency of the earth. And a big part of that is because of the rebar grid in our home's foundation. So not only is it a metal grid, but it's a square grid, and the geometrics of the squares are just as bad as the metal. So these little rocks will help kind of cancel out that grid and let everything in the house and the inhabitants connect to that Schumann resonance, which is the natural frequency that we really want to be on. And then our positive free radicals can go down into the earth where they're supposed to be, and we can have a balanced charge of positive and negative ions around us instead of just positive free radicals everywhere.
I went to school in New York City, and I noticed that it felt like the energy from everyone was just going down and then bouncing off something right back up to the population. And it was so uncomfortable to be there sometimes. And, I know so many people love New York City, and I'm not dissing New York City at all, but like, I just felt very, there was a lot of feelings I couldn't sort through when I was there. And I always thought it was because they were just on a big rock and it was just reflecting up. But what you just said makes so much sense, because there's so many buildings and so many underground structures of New York City. So, wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if if the contractor arranged the rebar in a pentagram or a tetrahedron or whatever? Yeah, so that where you're standing on it's like, oh, hey, it's really cool. But no, that's not the way they work. It's
Yeah, actually, I saw a really interesting demonstration with dowsing that really kind of hit this home for me. And at Premier Research Labs, so I've learned a lot of these things. They took two poster boards, and one had a rectangular grid on it. And in the energy work that I do in homes, we like things to be rectangular, and we like the ratio to be 1 to 1.7 in the rectangle. So there was one poster board that had the rectangle grid, and then the other grid was just a square grid, like you would have in your rebar. And they had two people. Well, they had one person stand on the rectangular grid, and they dowsed them, or I use the O-ring testing, and their field was completely strong. And then they just had them move over and stand on the other piece of paper on top of the square geometrics, and their field went completely weak.
Oh my gosh. So
something so small and so subtle that's completely out of sight, out of mind, but who's going to think of that? Well, somebody did, and it's interesting. It's interesting that to find something like that, and it's interesting to figure out a way to fix it.
All those people out there who are having trouble finding a solution, and they've been to doctor after doctor after doctor, this might be something really interesting to go and check out, because you just don't know all those invisible things that are acting on your own fields, that you just have no idea that they're creating disharmony.
Yep, absolutely. And then people start feeling like they're crazy because they know there's something wrong, but they can't find an answer. And then people think that, they're telling them nothing, there's nothing, or
Yeah, your tests
don't
are
have a good
clean.
answer.
You're okay.
Crazy. Yeah. Yeah. So in addition to the rocks, there's one other thing that I really like to use, and that's it's called Liquid Tech, and it's a copper bioenergetic grounding paint. And I mean, I've seen people that have painted like their entire walls and gone to crazy lengths to try to deal with these electrical disturbances. And it doesn't always have to be that complicated or expensive. So this one little bottle of Liquid Tech can help remediate all of the electrical wiring in your house. So if you just paint like a little swipe on the top and bottom of your circuit breaker box, and it will change, and you can test this with dowsing, it'll change the wiring through your whole house and reharmonize those energy fields. And then you can put it on your smart meter. For those, most of us have smart meters now, we don't have the analogs anymore. But you can do a band on the top and bottom of the smart meter. You can do under your Wi-Fi router and your electronics, your cell phone. And then you go to the water line and the incoming water line of the house. You go around that and it changes the energetics of all the water coming out of your taps and your shower heads. And then what's really crazy is you can use it on your air conditioner unit, and you can muscle test or douse the air coming out of your vents, and it will test weak. And you put the paint on the AC handler, on the other side of the house, and go back to that vent where the air is coming out and test it. And the energy of that air changes and becomes strong and beneficial to your field. So, yeah, it's kind of magical when you can start feeling and seeing invisible energies. And the first thing that when I started learning dowsing and muscle testing, I became very upset, because you start realizing how many things in your environment have poor energetics. Yeah. It's like the barcodes on the produce in the grocery store turn your food off, and the building over there, and the water tower over there, and the this and the that. And you start to feel kind of overwhelmed and helpless. And then you start finding tools, and it brings you to this place where you go, oh my gosh, I have control over this. There's something I can do about this cell tower here. There's something I can do about this transformer in my yard. And it gives you so much like power, and to realize that energy is not necessarily bad. It's just what's being done with it. And once you learn how to manipulate it, it's really empowering.
I studied extensively the books coming out of Dominer in Italy, and they make the most amazing like jewelry and devices that are made from copper, gold, and silver, and they spin them into these these little spirals and big spirals. And like Bill has his favorite dowsing pendulum is from Dominer, and that's dominer.org, DAMANHUR. And they use the different metals to kind of slow down time, to speed up time. And they use them so that you can kind of grab these synchronicities that are all around you all the time, so that you can make change in your life. So I know firsthand, kind of on an intellectual level, that these things make a difference, but I never thought about the house or the water or any of these things that that are a part of our own infrastructure. That is really, really cool.
Yeah, I made a new dowsing friend recently, and she does a lot of the same stuff that we do, which is always fun, because you can talk to somebody who like knows what you're talking about, and they don't think you're crazy. So we made fast friends, but I met her dad, and he is a sculpture artist, and he does these beautiful copper kind of like mobile things that just kind of, flow around in the wind. And he told me that my new friend Jocelyn, she'd been having an EMF issue at her house, and she could really feel it on this one wall. And they hung one of his copper sculptures there, and it completely fixed the problem for them. Whatever stress they were feeling from it, it's just the copper sort of somehow was able to transmute that energy. And copper can be very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that metals have their own field, which I know that they do, or maybe it's how they direct fields that are around them. But they all do different things, and it's miraculous.
Mhm.
It's so interesting that whole study of metallics and how they shove electrons around and play with the flow of energy in a space.
We're currently taking a course right now talking about the physics of anti-gravity, which is also extremely fascinating. And I mean, you can get lost in the weeds on that, but when you listen to it and see how the spirals work and how the gravitons work and
how the different metals work, because they've been talking about different metals and how they can help direct fields in order to create anti-gravity. You're looking at the upcoming sort of technology of the future. We're gonna have like hover cars and warp drive and free energy and the ability to really kind of get rid of our garbage in a meaningful way, that doesn't pollute the planet at the same time.
Right. And they were even talking about remediating radiation too.
Yeah, radiation.
Nuclear
and that's what you're talking about as well.
Right.
With EMF and all this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And radiation's definitely a piece of that. I just recently started using a tachyon energy plate. I started carrying them in my practice, and I've been playing around with this one I played around with it for a week before I decided I was going to make it available to my clients. Cause I like, of course I want to make sure things work and do what they say they're going to do. But I really wasn't too familiar with tachyon. I had heard of it, but didn't know too much. But I got this little hexagonal plate. It kind of looks like cardboard even. It doesn't look like much at all, but it's its own energy system. And it has the ability to energize your water, neutralize pesticides on your produce, take people out of pain. I've seen 2 people now have been like, oh my gosh, my shoulder or my knee. And I'm like, hey, just try this thing. I'm testing it out. And the one gentleman that was having knee pain came back to me the next week and he said, I didn't have pain for 3 days straight. And this was like an everyday, all day long pain he'd been experiencing. And another person put it on their shoulder and within 8 minutes, she was like, it's gone. There's no more pain or inflammation that I'm feeling here.
Oh my
God. So yeah, free energy can be used in a lot of different ways. And
absolutely, yeah.
We actually have a lot in common because I am an acupuncturist by trade, and I've studied for a long time. I've been doing it for over 20 years. And the holy grail of what we do by just slipping little needles in little spaces to change that the field of the body, just like what you're doing with your tachyon plate. It can be very challenging because, people don't really tell you everything, or maybe you just don't quite understand exactly what's happening with that person, but it can be very difficult to do. So, man, anything that that plays with that body energy field and you can get that quick of a response. I mean, it's a miracle for people, especially people who have lived with chronic pain for so very long. I used to see a lot of veterans and cancer patients, and to be able to get that, you feel so great that you achieved it. And the patient, to them, it's magic.
So the tachyon energy, maybe you guys know a little bit about it too, that you could share. I've just been researching to try to figure out more, and some of these things a lot of people are very secretive about, so it can be hard to find the information that you're looking for. My understanding of how it works is that it's a type of energy particle that is the closest particle to actual source energy, and that it has not been yet pre-assigned a frequency. So if we're getting healing from other things, like let's say music, for example, or scalar energy, or a far infrared pad, whatever it is, these things all have a pre-assigned frequency, and our body can only utilize that frequency in the way it's being given to us. But the tachyon energy, since it has no frequency assigned yet, your cells and your body are able to use this energy in whatever way it needs. That's my the simplest explanation I can give at this point from what I've read and what I've been able to find so far. But I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No,
I do not.
Yeah.
I know very little. So that was really interesting what you just said. It reminds me of like Oracle Girl's work, where she puts out this frequency and your body takes it, and it whatever your internal instructions are, it kind of uses it, and then you start to mimic it, and then you start to put it out yourself. And that sounds a lot like the tachyons. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, okay, so thank you so much. Thank you. We're so thrilled to have you. If you want to find out more about Jayme and the Biofield Expert, one place you can go to is biofieldexpert.com, or if you go to vitalbioenergetics.com and click on the specialists link, you'll see Jayme's picture there, you'll see my picture there, and that the link there will take you to where you want to be. So thank you very much for talking to us today. We're going to be talking again, I'm sure.
Yes, thanks for having me. I look forward to revisiting some of this stuff with you in the near future.
And for all you listeners out there, we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening. For more information about Bill and Nina G, please go to www.vitalbioenergetics.com. See you next time.